If a woman asks this, she desires sexual intimacy with you. Most men miss the signal. And that's not just their fault. It's by design. You see, women will never say the words directly. They won't tell you they want to be taken. They won't ask you outright if you're the man who can lead them through intimacy and intensity. But there is one question they do ask. And when they ask it, they're not looking for information. They're looking for permission. Permission to drop the mask. Permission to surrender into a man's certainty. Most men treat her question as casual curiosity. High-value men recognize it as a coded invitation. Because female desire never arrives dressed in logic. It shows up in subtle tests, misdirected challenges, and instinctual behaviors that bypass her own conscious awareness. In this video, I'm going to break down 10 subconscious female behaviors that signal she's sexually drawn to you, starting with the question that flips her entire frame from platonic to primal. These aren't surface-level attraction signs. These are deeper, built into the emotional logic of female mating psychology. Understand these 10 triggers, and you'll never see women the same again. More importantly, you'll never see yourself the same again. Let's begin. 1. She asks what type of woman you're into, but she's not trying to match it. She's not gathering data. She's testing for dominance. When a woman asks, "So what kind of girls do you usually go for?" She's not trying to become that type. She's trying to see if you've already chosen her. Subconsciously, she's placing herself in a silent competition and watching how you respond. If you hesitate, generalize, or give a politically correct answer, she feels zero tension. But if you're precise, grounded, and speak to a specific standard, she instantly starts to wonder if she meets it. That's where the internal shift begins. Here's the psychological engine behind it. Women are biologically wired to value pre-selection. If she thinks other high-value women desire you, her emotional brain flags you as validated. But it's not enough that women want you. You have to be selective about what you want. That's the paradox most men miss. The average guy tries to be likable, agreeable, and open-minded when answering. But what that tells her is that he's still available for negotiation, which means his standards are still emotional, soft clay. No tension, no charge, no sexual gravity. But when you say, "I like women who know they're feminine and don't compete with men," or "I don't chase looks, I watch how a woman carries herself in silence," you're doing two things. 1, you're exposing a subtle filter she must now pass through. And 2, you're broadcasting that your attention isn't up for grabs, it's earned. When you hold your frame here, she doesn't just feel intrigued, she starts performing subconsciously, trying to see if she is your type. That's how you know the polarity just shifted. But this next behavior? It's even more revealing, and most men completely miss it. 2, she critiques another woman's energy, because she's sexualizing you by proxy. It sounds innocent. She comments on a waitress. She judges a woman's vibe on Instagram. She's so extra. Why does she dress like that? She's clearly trying too hard. You think she's just being catty. What you're not seeing is that she's covertly reacting to women who might trigger your arousal. Here's what's actually happening. A woman's negative commentary about another woman's vibe, intentions, or vibe being off is emotional displacement. She's watching how you react to female sexuality, and she's reacting to it through someone else. Because the moment she feels that subtle primal charge from your presence, she starts to subconsciously monitor every woman around you. And the ones who signal overt sexuality, they threaten her claim to your attention. But she can't just say, "I feel jealous," or "I'm starting to want your attention more than I should." That would break her plausible deniability. So instead, she projects it outward, mocking or dismissing another woman's behavior. Here's how you respond. Don't take the bait. Don't agree or disagree. Just pause and say something like, "Interesting. What makes you think that?" Or, "You always notice how other women show up, huh?" By flipping the attention back onto her, you do two things. First, you highlight her emotional projection without shaming it. Second, you remind her that you see her seeing you. That's psychological dominance, and it short-circuits her need to posture. When you stay neutral but aware here, she doesn't feel dismissed. She feels seen. And in that moment, her arousal isn't about being sexy, it's about being claimed. But the next move? It's even more psychologically loaded. 3. She asks if you've ever been in love, but she's not after your past. It seems like a reflective question, a soft attempt at depth, but beneath the surface, it's a frame control probe. She's not asking about your history. She's testing your emotional leverage. When a woman asks, "Have you ever been in love?" she's measuring two things, your capacity for intensity and your ability to detach from it. Here's the contradiction. Women don't want men who are emotionally unavailable, but they also don't want men who are emotionally led. They want men who've experienced intensity and didn't lose themselves inside it. So what she's looking for in your answer is emotional competency without dependency. If you sound nostalgic, wounded, or too romantic, you signal vulnerability without boundaries. If you sound jaded, cold, or avoidant, you signal a guarded masculine wall. Both kill polarity. The power position is this. You acknowledge intensity and own your capacity to walk away. You say, yeah, I've been in love. I let myself feel it fully. And when it was time to end it, I didn't cling. I learned what I needed to and moved forward clearer. That signals something rare. You're a man who can feel, but who won't be pulled by feeling. That creates the ultimate tension for her emotional brain, because now she senses that if she ever gets access to your heart, she has to earn it. You're not emotionally guarded. You're emotionally grounded. When you hold your weight in this moment, she doesn't just fantasize about love. She starts craving the experience of being the woman who unlocks that side of you. But this next question, it's not about feelings at all, and that's why it's even more primal. 4. She asks about your morning routine because she's testing for post-sex presence. On the surface, this seems unrelated to intimacy, but when a woman asks what you do first thing in the morning, it's often not about productivity. It's about post-coital prediction. Her subconscious is imagining this. If I gave myself to him, who would he become the next morning? This is where identity leaks through. Evolutionarily, women are wired to assess what happens after mating, not just whether a man is attractive, but whether he's stable, aware, and purposeful after the act. That's why a man's morning is symbolically powerful. It reveals structure, presence, and psychological continuity. When a woman hears that your mornings start with focused intention, not chaos or dopamine, she feels safe to sexually release. Because her emotional brain calculates, he's not ruled by impulse. He carries his center with or without me. Now, most guys hear this question and ramble. Well, I hit snooze, check my phone, maybe work out if I have time. That answer instantly drains polarity, because now she imagines a man who's reactive, drifting, and subconsciously, that means she'll have to manage the aftermath if they hook up. The high-value response? You state your routine with calm authority. Mornings are quiet. I train, meditate, write, and don't touch my phone until noon. It's not about flexing discipline. It's about signaling that your world is built before she enters it. When you ground your identity in your rhythm, she doesn't just feel curious. She imagines herself inside your structure. That's where arousal becomes alignment. But the next sign? It's not even verbal, and it's 10 times more powerful. 5. She physically adjusts her environment around you because she's preparing for surrender. You walk into her space, or she enters yours, and suddenly she's rearranging things, fluffing a pillow, lighting a candle, adjusting the mirror, saying, "Let me clean this up real quick." This is not about cleanliness. It's about psychological readiness. She's not preparing the room. She's preparing herself. Here's what's happening. Her subconscious brain is shifting into feminine polarity preparation. It's the nervous prelude to surrender. She's not just tidying up. She's signaling, I want to feel safe being fully seen here. And that includes managing her external space so that her internal vulnerability feels justifiable. Women are wired to ritualize intimacy. Before they allow full emotional or physical access, they need to frame the moment as intentional. And adjusting the environment helps her bridge that internal gap. Here's the trap. If you interpret her behavior as performance or awkwardness, you'll break the energy. You'll comment, tease, or interrupt her rhythm. That throws her back into self-consciousness. The high-value move is presence, stillness. You let her manage the space while you remain grounded. Because when you stay relaxed while she adjusts the room, you're signaling, I'm already comfortable in this space, and I don't need you to perform. That creates the exact polarity her nervous system craves. She's not seeking approval. She's seeking permission to let go. When you don't rush, comment, or control, she doesn't just feel accommodated. She feels allowed. And when a woman feels allowed, she surrenders without resistance. 6. She asks if you're always like this, because she's registering emotional dominance. This one flies under the radar. She'll ask it casually, smiling, maybe after a sarcastic comment or a moment where you didn't flinch under pressure. Are you always like this? Most guys take it as a compliment. Some take it as a joke. But what she's really doing is trying to define your baseline. She's testing to see whether the man she's experiencing right now is who you always are. Because women don't just want attractive behavior. They want predictable identity. And that phrase, "Are you always like this?" is her subconscious probing for that exact thing. Here's the hidden wiring. Sexual surrender requires trust, not in a romantic way, but in a biological way. Her body and nervous system need to feel that the man she's drawn to won't become someone else after she lets down her guard. So when she asks that question, she's scanning for congruence. The mistake most guys make? They play into it. They say, "Haha, no, I'm just feeling confident today," or "depends on who I'm with." That answer tells her your confidence is conditional, which tells her she's managing the moment. But if you look her in the eye and say, "Yeah, I don't do versions," or "what you see is what you get," even when no one's looking, that lands differently. That tells her you're not peaking, you're consistent. It doesn't matter if she agrees with you or not. She's not looking for compatibility. She's looking for emotional gravity. And men who are grounded in their identity create that gravity effortlessly. When you anchor yourself here, she doesn't just flirt. She imagines resting in your presence. And that's the precursor to intimacy. But the next behavior is even more primal because it involves time distortion. 7. She slows her speech or lowers her voice because she's syncing with your tempo. Watch closely. You're in a conversation, and suddenly she starts speaking more slowly. Her voice gets softer. The pauses between her words stretch out just a little longer. She's not being polite. She's not mirroring your tone. She's experiencing parasympathetic arousal, a shift in nervous system state that opens her up to deeper intimacy. Here's the psychology most men miss. A woman's voice isn't just communication. It's an extension of her subconscious state. When she's stressed or disinterested, she talks fast, deflects, fills silences. But when she feels sexually drawn to a man, not just intellectually, but somatically, her system slows down to match his. This is evolutionary. In high-trust mating environments, a slower tempo signals non-threat and surrender. It tells her body, "You're not in a performance loop, you can let go." If a man talks fast, jokes too much, or tries to keep the energy up, her system can't regulate. But when a man speaks from his diaphragm, with calm authority, minimal verbal filler, and unhurried pacing, her nervous system sinks, and that's when her vocal tone starts to drop. The key is to stay centered. Don't mirror her softness. Hold your tone. Let silence stretch. Let her speak into it, because the more you create space, the more her body associates you with regulation, not stimulation. And here's the psychological advantage. Once a woman starts feeling regulated by you, she doesn't question her arousal. It bypasses logic and becomes embodied. When you hold this tempo, she doesn't just slow her voice, she starts surrendering through it. But the next question she asks, it's not about your voice, it's about your boundaries. 8. She asks who you can't stand, because she wants to locate your masculine edge. It's subtle. You're deep into a conversation, and she throws it out. Is there anyone you just can't stand? This isn't gossip. It's not venting. It's psychological excavation. She's not looking for names. She's searching for your moral boundary lines. Here's what she's trying to uncover. What offends your masculine code? What violates your standards? What triggers you to draw a hard line? Because here's the truth most men never realize. Polarity thrives not in kindness, but in certainty. Women aren't attracted to men who agree with everyone. They're drawn to men who discriminate with clarity, not in a judgmental way, but in a standards-based way. So when you say, "I can't stand people who manipulate behind politeness," or "I lose respect for men who fold when it gets uncomfortable," you're broadcasting the kind of man you refuse to be. That's power. Now, most guys default to vague answers. "I try not to judge people," or "everyone's got their own stuff." That sounds mature, but it leaks signal. It tells her you haven't decided what you're about. And if you haven't decided what you're about, you're not yet fully a man. When you speak with emotional precision, draw clear lines, and do it without heat, you become emotionally predictable. And that's when her arousal becomes safe to access. When you define what you won't tolerate, she doesn't just listen. She places herself on the map of your value system. And in that space, intimacy becomes earned. The next sign? It's not about who you reject. It's about what you've reclaimed. 9. She asks about your childhood, not to understand your past, but to map your evolution. She'll say it with curiosity. What were you like growing up? Or, were you always like this? But this isn't nostalgia. This is psychological recon. She wants to track your arc, from boy to man, from unformed identity to anchored presence. Because here's the raw truth. Female sexual arousal is directly linked to male transformation. She wants to know what forged you, not so she can fix you, but so she can feel the contrast between who you were and who you've become. That contrast tells her if you've faced hardship, if you've fought your weakness, if you've walked through pain without outsourcing the cleanup. She's not looking for drama. She's looking for depth. Most men blow this opportunity. They either trauma dump, sounding like they haven't healed, or they dodge, saying, "Nothing special, normal kid." Both responses break tension. The powerful response? You share one defining contrast. Calmly. "I used to be too agreeable. Didn't speak up. Learned fast that silence can cost you everything." That answer tells her you've lived, you've lost, and more importantly, you've chosen a new code. That's the mark of evolution. And here's why it works. When a woman sees your arc, she starts imagining her role in your future. When you share your arc without ego or apology, she doesn't just see a man, she sees a mission. But this final point, it's the hinge of everything, and it changes how women respond to you forever. 10. She asks if she makes you nervous, because she wants to feel your unshakable center. You've built tension. There's eye contact. The room is quiet. And then she smirks and asks, "Do I make you nervous?" Most men laugh it off or deny it. But what they don't realize is, that question is her last test before surrender. It's the final probe, a check for your masculine center. Because here's what women intuitively know. If you get nervous around beauty, you're not yet immune to it. And if you're not immune, you're still controlled by it. That means she can't fully trust you to lead in intimacy. What she's looking for in that moment isn't arrogance. It's nervous system certainty. You don't say, "No, never." You don't say, "A little." You say, "No, but I see what you're trying to do." With a smirk, a pause, a calm gaze, because that tells her this. You're not flinching. You're not resisting. You're simply unavailable to be moved. And when a woman sees that you don't get nervous around her beauty, she finally does. Her body releases. Her testing stops. And all that energy she was using to provoke dissolves into receptivity. Women don't just want confidence. They want certainty. And certainty begins when you realize you've been the prize all along.